don't mind it.
And I know it's supposed to.
She's always got all of it.
We are here today to honor the life of Allan Weinstein and to offer comfort to Allan's entire family. At this time, if you have a cell phone or any other electronic device, if we could please turn those to the silent mode. Officiating at today's service is Rabbi Cantor Rob Jury.
The psalmist wrote, I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side, and I shall not be moved. Therefore my heart can exult, for my being is eternally secure. As we hear those words of comfort, we gather today, for death has taken away our beloved Allan. Our friends grieve in their darkened world. In their silence, there is lamentation, and in their tears, there is loneliness. And as we remember and listen together, we hear moments of laughter and remembrance, moments of celebration, of a life well lived by a man well loved. Hear this, O God, and be with the family. For it was Allan's love that united us in life, in which death cannot take away, for his companionship shared upon life's paths, which continues now through the tenderness of memory, for the gifts of his heart and his mind, and just one more story that maybe we'll hear like it was told for the first time as we hear it for the 100th time. These too will be a precious remembrance. For all of these and more, God, we give thanks to you. In times of grief and loss, we listen to that sacred message of our scriptures, looking for that ever new message of God's nearness. And so I invite you to turn with me into your leaflets as we'll seek the words of comfort in the 23rd Psalm. Let's read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As we dwell in that place of gathering, in that place of remembrance, we connect with the words of the psalmist who wrote, I lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. For God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. For God is your eternal guardian. Gathered today, remembering Allan, remembering the changing of the seasons, we call to mind the words of Ecclesiastes who wrote, for everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence, and a time to speak. And so speak we do as we cry out. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable unto you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Together we say, Amen.
Amen.
We come now to moments of remembrance, of hesped, of eulogy, as we tell the story and celebrate Allan's life. It's my honor to invite up to share some memories on behalf of himself and the family, a dear family friend, Scott Freed.
It's an honor to be here. I want to thank Esther and her family for allowing me to come and speak here today. We don't know each other that long. We're actually neighbors together, and we knew we had an instant connection together, not only because we're Jewish people, but we have love together, and we love the same things, and certainly wonderful to have met Allan for the short time that I did. I didn't know him long, but what I knew of Allan was a very thoughtful, very gentle, and a giving man. He seemed to be always happy, always willing to give the kids something and looking to partake in our lives. And we had many discussions. Some of those were serious discussions about life. We had mutual discussions about our connections as Jews and what that means. And though we had maybe some differences on important aspects of our faith, we had a mutual respect one for another. And that's always important. He was very gentle and considerate of my faith. And I'm kind of a rare Jew that believes in Jesus, but that didn't stop us being Jews together in the love that we shared one for another, and certainly for his family. I'm going to miss seeing his smiling face. I'm going to miss seeing him walking with Esther and walking Rocky. And we've seen some tough times because Allan hasn't been well for the last few months, but that's been able to bring us closer together. Esther was so kind to call me family and to call our family family, and that means a lot. It's important to have family. My kids are kind of scattered around, and so it's been a joy to be able to be with Esther and her family. Of course, as Rabbi had said, this is an important time. These are thought-provoking times. Death is going to meet us all, for sure, at some point. And I want to read a thought-provoking quote from the Siddur, and I want to conclude with a few Bible verses for us to consider for those of us that are alive here today on the side of the living. And we have to consider the thought of death for all of us. And I would ask you to listen carefully, because we're all going to have to face this time of death and be ready to meet our Maker and to give an account for our time on this earth as we know we will. And should you have any questions, of course, Rabbi is going to be here faithful to be able to answer a lot of those questions, and I certainly would love to be able to do that as well. But the most important place we can go is, as it's been spoken already, is the absolute truth in the scriptures, the very living Word of God. And I want to quote this quote here from the Siddur. It actually would begin from a point on the funeral service, and it's quoted from Akiva ben Halel, who said, "Reflect on three things and you will avoid transgression. Know where you came from, where you are going, and before whom you will have to give an account and reckon. Where you came from a putrid drop, where you are going to a place of dust, worms, and maggots. And before whom you will have to give an account and reckon, before the supreme King of Kings, the Holy One, blessed be He." And of course, we can't not quote more of Ecclesiastes. I would like to quote Ecclesiastes chapter 7, 1 through 4. It says, "A good name is better than precious ointment in the day of death, than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men. And the living will lay it to his heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by the sadness of the countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth." And the question is, why is the house of mourning better than the house of feasting? Moses tells us to consider our end, to consider this, to be ready to meet our Maker. For it says in Deuteronomy 32:29, "Oh, that they were wise, that they understood this, that they would consider their latter end." Psalms 90:12, it says, "So teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. I think Allan would certainly ask us to do that, as well as the end of all the matter in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. It ends here. Of course, who was Solomon? Shlomo was the wisest man who ever lived, and we know that he had a time of despair, a time where he didn't act and uphold his name. But at the end of his life, he came to these conclusions. He says in Ecclesiastes 12:7 and 8, it says, "Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Vanity of vanities, saith the preacher, all is vanity." What is vanity? All that is in life, because at the end, the only thing that is going to matter is our relationship with the Holy One. Ecclesiastes 12:13 and 14, it says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. At the end of everything, fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment, every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." We're all going to end up in the same place. And we're going to miss out. We're going to miss seeing him. But the hope is that we will be part of that resurrection. We'll be able to see Allan again, and to be able to see what it means for salvation. And what does the preacher say? Fear God. What do we see today? A little fear of God. And fear God and keep his commandments and to know who he is. And I'll end with this quote from Jeremiah 29:11-13. It says, "For I know the thoughts that I think toward you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. Then ye shall call upon me, and ye shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you. And ye shall seek me and find me, when ye shall search for me with all your heart." And I want to encourage everyone to search out God, to seek God, and to understand what it means. Life and death, as we learned, death is part of life. These things must happen. And I'm encouraged that I'm able to be here with you to comfort you. And know this, we're not just here today. We're going to be here with you. And we want you to know that we stand with you. We want to comfort you. And remember, if you want to seek God, he can be found. And I'll end with this. And I just want the Lord to be able to bless you, to keep you, Esther, and your family as you mourn the loss of our dear friend. Thank you so much for the honor to be able to allow me to be here. And the Lord bless you.
Today we mourn the loss, and we celebrate the life of a brother, a husband, a father, a grandfather, a friend, the life of Allan. Allan was born on the south side of Chicago, and he knew challenges and adversities even from an adolescent. His beloved father died when he was only 14, and he was raised by his mother along with his brother, who raised these boys on their own. They became strong together. Thick as thieves, Allan found his way to celebrate life in the street by taking his time to learn how to drag race cars. Finding a little bit of speed. You see, he not only could get into the race, but he was known to win his fair share of those races. He went on, moving from the south side, getting up to the north side, graduated from the fabled Sen High School, where he could have met the love of his life, separated only by a year or so in high school. Though, Esther, I don't believe you ever actually met in high school. No, they were just somewhere in the building. He missed the opportunity. But you see, that passion for life and that love for a little bit of fastness had Allan pursue wonderful cars like his VW Beetle, or maybe some less fond memories of what it may have been to be a child in a car, taking a corner at about 10 miles an hour, but before there were seatbelt laws, and before dads knew to check was the door closed, and maybe learning what it means to tuck and roll as dad made a corner with that car. We can talk about that maybe a little bit later. But Allan found this love for life and for people wherever he was. After high school, he joined the army, a man of so important tasks, including his work with orphans. He also learned how to cook pagogi on the grill, a delicious recipe that he would often show off to people whom he loved and cared for. So Allan eventually met the love of his life, having missed her in high school. His Esther, when he started writing a girl who was too tall for him. You see, he had been writing these wonderful love letters to this dashing 5'10" tall, beautiful specimen who was dear friends with Esther, who kept saying to her, "Esther, have I got a guy for you?" And she would say, no, thank you. And again, your girlfriend would say, but really, Esther, such a man, and you were not so interested. It was not love at first notice, until she said to you, "I really am too tall for this guy. He's short in that beautiful Jewish kind of a way." And it reminds me that maybe with that personality and his height, it would be a better match for you. Eventually, though, Esther, you relented, and you said, "I'll give it a try, why not?" You went on a first date to the beautiful ice cream shop in Wilmette. The rest, as they say, is history. Eventually, you married. You were blessed with two beautiful girls, Wendy and Lauren, and you celebrated living life together, raising a family, knowing the best of what it is to have love in your own house. As the girls were growing up, of course, Esther worked on the weekends and left Allan as the dad in charge. Now, Lauren remembers that every Saturday when Dad was in charge, they would go to the bank and they would make a bank deposit. And in those days, the bank would put out a basket of munchkins on the counter, hoping the donuts would entice you to come in. It took some time before Lauren learned that the bank is not where you go to get donuts, that they actually have donut shops for this. And in fact, you would often notice when the bank didn't have the flavor that you wanted, the kind of donut, and you would say, "Dad, they're out of my kind." But Dad always looking to teach you lessons, trying to get you to embrace. Sometimes when they're out of the powdered sugared ones, you just need to have a chocolate one and learn to appreciate the chocolate. Now, when Wendy was remembering these times, Wendy remembered that actually weekends were about fast food. When Mom was away, we didn't need the home-cooked meals. We instead could get all of the wonderful delights from a fast food place. You see, what was most important to Allan, though, was spending time with family and with friends. It didn't really matter to him so much what were we eating or what were we doing. What mattered was, are we connected? Who are we with? How can we spend time together? Allan was the kind of person who could make friends wherever he went. If it was on vacation, on the train, at a campsite, sitting together at a shiva, you name it, he could make a friend anywhere. You see, Allan was a lovable guy who enjoyed laughing. He loved telling stories, though we learned recently that perhaps it was his lucky Notre Dame baseball cap that made it so easy for people to see him and to come up and start talking with him. Jeff remembers when he became part of the family. He and Wendy had met at college, and Jeff had come home to meet the family for the first time on a large visit to Buffalo Grove, where he drove his Uncle Jesse, the name he had given to his dad's truck. It was the kind of truck that needed a little extra traction in the winter, and it was the kind of truck you would stick an air conditioner into the back of the truck, and no one would have thought that was out of place on the truck. And so Jeff made the pilgrimage to Buffalo Grove to meet this wonderful family. Knowing that it was time to fill up the truck, he went out, put some gas in Uncle Jesse, and failed to return back home. This caused Allan some concern, saying, "What happened to this guy? The first time he's here, we've lost him already." Knowing that Jeff was from a small town and visiting the metropolis of Buffalo Grove for the first time, Allan, with his deep heart and concern, went out to look to see what had happened. He drove around, seeking high and low the sights of Buffalo Grove, and when he couldn't find him, thought to himself, "I may as well check the police station." And when he arrived, there he found Jeff, who had been spotted as the suspicious character he was in Buffalo Grove, and was waiting for a future father-in-law to vouchsafe for him. Allan loved telling this story and delighted in all of the details. The telling of stories of how he met people and connected to family really was a beautiful way of Allan in this world. He was a wonderful guy and an even more amazing grandfather. As Jacob and Derek were remembering watching movies with Papa, it included the James Bond movies, which maybe they watched or maybe they just watched sitting on the shelf and watched something else like Better Call Saul, or something that would really engage you in deep conversation of life's journeys and quests. Grandpa, though, was the kind of guy who showed up. This was one of the beautiful things. He would show up not just watching movies or TV, he would show up at whatever you were doing. If you were wrestling, he was there. If you were in the band, he was there. If it was going to watch the marching band instead of the game, he was there. He was the kind of grandpa who always was present. That was an important piece to Allan, to be the kind of man who shows up. He had done this with his daughters as well, and as we were remembering, Wendy remembers going to Indian Princesses with Dad, where Allan just loved the camping trips, the bonding with the other dads, and the hanging out time. It was really about being together. He cherished that so much. He was a man who knew where he wanted to go in life, even when the GPS told him he was going the wrong way. Lord appreciated that wherever Dad was going, he always had something to teach you, always had some way to guide you. You remember when you were looking at colleges, you had made diligently a list of the places to look at and a longer list of places not to look at. And on the way to see the sites, Dad made sure you didn't pass over any of the ones that were on the let's not go there list. And he would take you on these detours and you would say, Dad, we don't really need to see every possible place. And he would say to you, you don't know what you're missing until you've taken the time to see what's out there. And on one of those trips, he brought you to a place that was just the right place for you. You hold that learning even today as you make decisions in life, to know I need to see what's out there, because you never know what we might be missing in finding the right place. Allan was all heart in this way. He cared deeply about his family and did whatever it took to make sure everyone was well cared for. You could find reminders of care if you looked in the trunk of your car and found the box for the winter with the blankets and the jumper cables that you could call someone else like Dad to use. You could find them in the way of knowing that the furnace was taken care of, that AAA was there. Or as we look around the house even today and see those boxes with this beautiful handwriting on them, reminding us of all the right places. You could also know how much Allan cared about you, depending on how many light bulbs he gave you for your box. In fact, Jeff remembers whenever Allan was going to come over, he would look to Wendy and say, we better go check the light bulbs right now. And Dad's going to go out and come back with another box. This beautiful way of caring with big hearts, in loving ways, and in practical ways. This was Allan, a man with a personality bigger than life, who's always willing to sit back and let his beloved wife and the ladies in his life shine. That was Allan. Allan now joins his parents and his brother Preston, his sister-in-law Jessica, and his beloved pup Bosco. All of those who've gone before him in the heavenly bonds of everlasting life. Here in this world, Allan leaves behind a legacy of love. Allan leaves behind a legacy of love to his beloved wife Esther. To him, she is more precious than rubies. She's sweeter than the sweetest wine. You loved each other so much, and the care and the dedication you gave to Allan throughout your life, and in these last months particularly, is a living testament of your love. Dad leaves behind a legacy of love to his adoring daughters, to Wendy and her loving husband Jeff, to Lauren and her loving fiancé Paul. He loved you all so very much and cherished every moment. in your life. Grandpa leaves behind a legacy of love to his dear grandsons, to Jacob and to Derek. You shared a bond with your grandfather that only the two of you could truly know and appreciate. It says that children are the crown of their elders, but you are his pride and his joy, who he was willing to quell about and to brag about all the time. Allan leaves behind a legacy of love to his nieces, to his nephews, his cousins, his family, and his many, many friends. He loved you all so very much. In the words of Rabbi Milton Steinberg, we say that grief and love go hand in hand, that the pain that a loss inflicts is the measure of a love that is stronger than death. May we learn to hold on with open arms to the love Allan had for all of us, and the love we will always have for him. May his memory forever be a blessing, and together we say, Amen.
Amen.
In moments like this, we usher the soul up into heaven with a special prayer, the El Lele Rachamim. I invite you, if you're able to rise, to do so at this time in honor of Allan's soul. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Tzadok, our beloved Allan, who has entered into eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in the presence of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. For God is his inheritance. May you rest in peace. Together we say, Amen.
Amen.
You may be seated. This does conclude this portion of our service. If you would like to join us at the interment will be taking place at Ridge Lawn Cemetery. The address is on the front of your leaflets, 5736 North Pulaski Road in Chicago. For safety reasons, we will not be riding in a procession. Again, we will not be riding in a procession. We ask that you drive on your own and then meet us at the entrance. The approximate travel time to the cemetery is about 30 to 45 minutes. The Weinstein family will be sitting Shiva. Shiva information is located on the inside of your leaflets. Shiva will take place at the Weinstein residence in Sugar Grove, Illinois. Shiva will be immediately following the interment today until 9 p.m. and then tomorrow, Thursday, from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. At this time, if you are able to please rise in silent prayer as we escort the Weinstein family and the casket from the sanctuary. If you have been asked to have the honor to serve as a pallbearer, at this time, please come forward. ask that you register your vehicles as soon as you are able. If you have not had a chance to sign the register book, it is right outside. You will also have it at the cemetery and at the Shiva. And again, we'll meet